Seeing as how you are in talent acquisition, you understand the recruitment cycle, everything that's taking place, what have you found to be some of the most important insights in this job market right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, Patricia. I think right now, as you see the massive layoffs and things that are happening, people quickly exiting the job market. It's funny that you asked that question, is because I literally just got a text from a friend from
Mhm.
a company I used to work at who said, due to restructuring, his job was eliminated as of right now. And so
Mm,
now you have to think what goes through the mind of someone. I personally just went through it myself. And so when you think about what goes through the mind of someone, it's okay, what do I do next? How do I find the next job? And at that point, you're scrambling to do what? Update your resume, kind of get your emotions in check, all these things, especially if it's a quick exit. And that's why I think documenting, if you document early, it's easier to take those next steps because you're always a step ahead or two steps ahead, prepared for any kind of unexpected career transition. And so I think what folks are missing now, professionals that are missing now, they're leaving intellectual knowledge on the table
mm,
in the event that there's a opportune opportunity to where they're exited out the building of that profession. And so everything is left where in their emails and PowerPoint decks and chats. And so they don't have time to collect all that stuff. They're not even thinking about it. So the goal is I'm hoping that folks will start to shift and see the importance of, documenting their work.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I can't tell you how many times someone will come to me and they're like, I'm not getting the traction that I need in my job search. And when we start talking about their career history, it becomes like cleaning out the basement after 15, 20 years. Like it's just so hard to
Yeah.
remember all the things that they did. And then it comes time, we get their achievements and it's like, wow, this is great. Look at all that impact. And then I say, okay, go ahead and fill in XYZ metrics, and you just see a blank face. They're like, I didn't get them. I
Right.
remember it was a big win, but I didn't write down what it was. I didn't keep the document, the screenshot, the whatever it is. So along those lines, I would love to hear from you. What has it been like, either through clients of yours, colleagues, or even your experience, to walk into a room, have to express your value, and not have those pieces?
Oh yeah. Personal experience. I can easily share that.
Hey there, you're listening to the Uncommon Career Podcast, and I'm here with you every single week to be your support system during the job search. Now, today we're talking to a guest. We're talking to Orlando, as you can already tell. And really, I brought him on because he's got this really cool application. And whether or not you get the application, though, I want you to listen into this episode for how to document your wins, what to jot down at the end of a busy week so that you can have some fantastic wins to share with your leadership, to share at future interviews, and just to share with the world so that they know the great work that you're doing, especially when it's time to get hired. We're going to hop right back into the conversation, but just know that we're here with you every single week. So if you're looking to get hired and the search is a little bit slower than you imagined, then stick with me and we're going to help to make that a little bit smoother, a little bit faster. All right, let's get back into today's conversation.
Personal experience. I can easily share that. So I was in a performance review discussion with my manager, and I know I've accumulated and built this massive body of work. Right, it was at the end of the year. I've done over 80 career events. Partnered with stakeholders, drove application initiatives in different departments, supporting DNI. I've done all this work. And so as we were going through that discussion, the manager started to say, you didn't get this, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I'm like, wait a minute. In my mind, I'm like, this is not what I expected, right? No one's perfect. Did I hit all the metrics? No, I'll be completely honest. But did I do a good job overall when you look at the balance of it? Absolutely. It was undeniable. It was a highly visible role. And so when I start to rebuttal that, the manager cut me off and said, "Where's the proof?" I'm sitting there with a small, notebook, company pen, company notebook, and I couldn't prove anything because I didn't have everything in one spot for me to now start to read through all the performance achievements that I've done. And so when that happened, I was just completely, I said this before, it was like an out of body experience. And I was like, this cannot be happening. You've seen everything. In my head, I'm thinking, you've seen everything I've done. The
Mm,
company have seen it. I was one of the most visible people in that organization based on the role I had. And the when he said, you know, where's the proof? I, I couldn't bring it to fruition. And so no time to scramble. It was right there on the spot, 10 seconds. I couldn't say, hey, let me go check my email. Let me go check my PowerPoint decks that I put together, all the teams, the documents, the kudos that I've got. Nothing. I couldn't do nothing at
yeah.
that moment. And that conversation ended just like that. And so, what I was able to do afterwards was kind of collect my thoughts and put some stuff together. But at the moment, I didn't get the highest percentage that I could have got for the bonus because I couldn't prove the overall outcome and value that he was asking for.
You know what's so interesting as you're sharing that? It makes me think of the different layers that we have to go through to go from, like you said, I'm going to collect all the information, right? That's just one layer. Then there's the let me synthesize and surface the pieces that are most important to my leader because you've accomplished a lot. But for each of us, there are things that are, kind of like progress goals and outcome goals, right?
Mhm.
Most leaders are like, I want the outcome goals and then maybe fill in some gaps with the process, but the outcome goals are really what I'm interested in. And so it sounds like, okay, there's these layers. First layer is collect, collect, collect at multiple points, right? It's got to be a regular practice. And then I'm hearing the metrics in there. Like I'm almost seeing this process, right? Collect the info, then surface the metrics. But then
Mhm.
it's like, well, let me synthesize after I've surfaced the most important things. Let me synthesize how do I share this so it resonates with him? Because what the work we do, we're so used to talking about it in our terms. Is like one example when you go to your leader and you say something like, oh, I hit my mark on this, this, and that. It resonates. But imagine if you came up to your leader and you said, at the beginning of last quarter, you had a goal to increase this specific KPI. Here's the outcome I did that directly contributed to your specific KPI. And that's a lot of thinking to do to bring all those pieces together in one, right?
Exactly. So, and you said it best, right? The different layers. And so I put it in terms of the different levels you go through, the language changes. So, entry level, it's data dump, get all the information. Mid level, give me some of the information with kind of recommended outcomes or the impact. When you speak to the executive level, they just want here's the decided decision I'm making to resolve the issue. And so the context of your conversations gets smaller and smaller and tighter into what I like to call performance language. And so just like you said, you have to data dump all this stuff, then you have to extract the value, then you have to communicate the impact. And that's what every at each level everyone's looking for. What It's not what did you do, is how did you impact based to the business need.
Mm. That is so helpful. Performance language. Now, here's the thing I always hear with communications. Do you remember back in school, which I'm sure was a year ago for you, but it was like 10, 15 years ago for me. but but you remember back in school, and I'm just gonna say what everybody thought back in school. You're an engineer, oh, your major's hard. You're in communications, oh, your major's easy. Do you remember thinking that?
Mhm, mhm.
I remember
Yep,
thinking that, but that's because in the communications major, it wasn't numbers based, it wasn't hard science. But now in the workforce, communications may sound easy. It may sound like you can do it really quickly because there's no measure. But now, when your salary, when your ability to stay in your position depends on how you communicate, all of a sudden you realize just how strategic and complex communications can be.
absolutely. And it's funny you say that because the person I mentioned earlier, who I just received a text from, worked in public affairs.
Mm,
So their role specifically was heavy communications around community investment. And so when you're talking at that level to so many entities, your style of communication is strictly business, right?
mhm,
It's so strategic and important because you're talking about a person who oversees deploying capital into the community, to partnerships, to brand build, bring awareness to the organization or to whatever partner they're looking to support. And so how 360 things turn around, like you said. Someone with a liberal arts degree, but like, what is that? Is that even real?
Yeah.
And so when people say communications degree, we're thinking, I know how to talk. I don't need that. But it's corporate communications, right? And maybe they
Mhm.
need to rebrand it because it's a different language altogether.
Oh, yeah. An interview is a great example too. People think, oh, I have this deficit, this red flag. And like, for example, let's say a initiative just didn't go through the way that they planned. You're thinking that you're going in there having to justify yourself. If you go in there justifying yourself, you're already at a deficit.
Correct.
But if you go in there having synthesized all your wins, having spent time reflecting on all the ways that your team is now more valuable for having gone through this. You see so many LinkedIn posts that are like, if you don't fail, you didn't learn. And all these leaders saying, if you didn't fail, you didn't learn. You've got to fail forward, all these things, right? This is where value comes from. That's how you have to approach that conversation. So there's a technique and a strategy to come in saying, we are so much more valuable. Here's the 5 things we learned. Here's how we're already putting them into or leveraging them for outcomes. And all of this came from this one outcome that wasn't met. So now you're framing the conversation as this one thing, one expense is really a training to make our team stronger, right? And all of those kinds of communication frameworks, strategies can help you when you put them all together to present a much more compelling argument when you start talking to your leaders and when you go into interviews and now you're not worried about that one failure or that one time something didn't go through, you know?
Yep. And let me take a different angle and add value here. Think of it from the HR perspective when they have to review, all the managers and HR people have to review, compensation team have to go into whatever system they're tracking this and review the feedback both from the manager and the employee and that individual. How much easier would it be if everything was clear, concise, synthesized in order, and it's talking again, you're now speaking performance language and it's bullet points of a collective, data that you put into a tool that
Mhm.
allows you to extract again the impact. And so it's easier for the team to run through it and to maybe even, if there's some discrepancies, push back to say, hey, why aren't this person being valued at this level based on what they inputted in the system? This looks like they're hitting metrics and goals, but you're saying no. And so it's a cleaner discussion when the visibility is there and the accuracy is there and the data is there and the impact is there.
Oh my goodness, so much in that response. I mean, you're talking about self advocacy. You're
Mhm.
talking about speaking for every person who said, my leader doesn't advocate for me. Did you know that you can advocate for yourself, right? That it's not, and I'm gonna say this, right, because I love you, but it's not technically their responsibility to keep track of your wins. Like, so this is an opportunity. Think about when you go into you've seen Shark Tank, right? And you're like,
Mhm.
oh, everything's been invented. But there's always one creative person who's like, no, 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 there's a gap and I'm going to fill it. And by filling that gap that no one else sees, I'm going to come up on top.
Love it.
It's the same thing, right?
I love that analogy. And think of it from Mr. Wonderful, who everyone loves to hate. What does he always harp on entrepreneurs who come in there? You got to know your numbers. He's saying you got to know your value, you got to know your data, you got to know the overall impact of what you're trying to build here. And so when you think about it from a career standpoint, same thing. When you go in and you have your quote unquote numbers in order, it's hard to refute that. And then it makes it easier, again, for overall alignment, for retention, for culture, because
Hmm.
everyone is showing their impact and value. And now it's like, okay, we're rocking and rolling here because we have a team that's invested. Now, if there are folks that are not doing it, then performers and things like that, and plus it makes it easier to vet those folks out as well.
Hmm.
And so there's all different, ways to view this and how it supports an organization and individuals with their career growth.
So interesting. And here's the thing, the problem that I tend to hear over and over. Usually I work with clients beginning to end. So there's that pain point at the beginning where we're like, we didn't keep the metrics. So let's, make estimates. Let's figure out how we can bring those metrics into the resume. And then throughout the time that we're working together, they are clearer and clearer and clearer in their messaging. Now, as you're learning the skill, it's important to do this manually. It's important to understand, kind of like you learn the theory and then you learn the quick formula, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
And so this is the skill building that we do with our clients is learn how to think strategically, learn how to think in communications techniques, right? Like and frameworks and things, and take all of your career history, which takes us a solid couple of hours to talk through, and bring that down to just a couple of quick statements you can bring up in an interview, a career story, or whatnot. All of that synthesis takes time the first time, but the most difficult thing is at the end, once they get the offer, I usually have a first 90 days session where we say, okay, where do you want to go with your career? How do you want these first 90 days to set you up for success? For some people, it's like, oh, I want to change this way of communicating, or I want to avoid over explaining and avoid over committing. And I don't want to become the workhorse at this workplace, right? I want to set the tone. But for a lot of folks, one of the key things we work on is they say literally this. They say, I don't want to have to go through my experience again the way we did in the beginning. That was so hard. And they're like, I want to learn to capture my wins quickly and as time is going, like as a regular practice. And so normally I would set them up. There's this like Word document, this little template I have. It's very helpful. However, it's manual. And so I actually, you and I have been talking about your system, Career Capital. And I went in here, and obviously, you know, right, Orlando. And if
Mhm.
you're listening now, I'm going to let you in on this. I brought Orlando here today to talk about Career Capital because it does what I show my clients to do manually, but there's so much thinking and strategy, and you have to like set aside X amount of time to like jot down all your initiatives, to put your kudos all in a folder, and to synthesize what it means and what's important and what's not, and get all of that sort of mush because in the day to day, we have so much going on to get all that like mental mush onto paper or onto a Google Doc. And then to take the time to synthesize it all so that when you're in front of a leader, you can have a one liner that immediately communicates your value. Career Capital, which is the application that Orlando shared with me, literally does it for you. I was pretty impressed. You want to share a little bit more about it? Because I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little like, oh, this is because I thought, well, I have a doc, I have a template, I share it
Yep.
with my clients. You can do this manually. But when I saw this, I'm like, oh, there's a ton of processing time and of synthesizing and time crafting the communications that happens automatically.
Correct. Yeah. So the simple way to explain it, and I'll go more in depth. Right. Career Capital is the AI platform that helps professionals document and leverage their achievements at work. And so, what that does to your point, Patricia, is allows you to just data dump, your projects and initiatives. Do you have to do it daily? No, but what this does form is habit, and that's what you need to develop is the habit of tracking your work and everything from, like you mentioned, the kudos if someone emailed you and said, hey, great job, Patricia, love the way you took initiative, this greatly reduced our turnaround time by 20%. Great work. Simple email, but it's from a leader.
Mhm.
You can upload that email into Career Capital, and that will be supported when you need to push out the outcome. And so as you're just tracking all your projects, whether they took, took legs and really grew, or they were, stopped early as corporate, we start a bunch of initiatives, but sometimes, dump half of them and nothing was done. What you're really tracking is also what involvement you had in that, whether the project continued or stopped, or it was a short project. The importance is you tracked your value, your importance, and then
Mhm.
allows you to add your ideas on what you would have done differently, stakeholders. And so it's with through guided questions, so you're not just randomly putting stuff in, it's guiding you through, so you're putting the value in as much as you want. And then when needed, you can use the AI summary to your point again to condense extracting the impact. And so now that turns into a one-page document that just shows all your value that you've done per project. And then the cherry on the top is a career mapping feature as well. So you run
Mhm.
that, it can kind of highlight and give you guidance as to say in recommendations to say, hey, you're positioned for future roles like this. Here are some
Mhm.
areas you need to improve on. Here's your strengths. These are things you should consider, basically. But again, it helps you talk the language that you need in corporate.
Yes. And one of the things that I found so interesting about this is that I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's so many layers that we're missing, right? So, to give you an idea as you're listening, I'm going to share
Mhm.
with you some of the pieces that come from that quarter summary so you can see what I mean, why I was like, oh, this is good. So, I went in and fed Career Capital my account. I fed it three different initiatives out, and I acted as a sales professional, like a sales development rep or sales manager. And so I went in and put in three initiatives. I put in a couple of different pieces of evidence. So, like that email that Orlando was talking about, I put in the value log, which is a specific achievements that I'm like, oh, here's my specific achievement. I threw in a couple in there. I did a couple of reflections on here's where I want to go with my career. Here's what happened last week, and a couple of notes and ideas. I didn't put in too much. Imagine this being like 2 to 3 weeks worth of content. If you do this once a week, takes you maybe 15 minutes at absolute maximum. It took me like 20 minutes through the whole thing, but let's say 15 minutes to do this once a week. The quarterly review is one of the cleanest summaries I have seen, which is why I was like, oh, this is like, I think it's pretty good. It gives you an executive summary, 3 bullets of your most important achievements. And it's like less than 10 words, but it's packed. Like, here's an example. Pivoted from tactical content delivery to strategic ownership of sales performance and behavior. Spearheaded sales retraining program delivering 1 million revenue increase over last year. Like, it's so crisp and so clear that all the communications work that seems easy, but we miss the mark so easily. Career Capital does it. There's career achievements here. And by the way, whether or not you use it, this information is so helpful because now you got to have in your mind like, okay, I need an executive summary. I need my key achievements with specific metrics. I need my performance as it relates to each of the company's initiatives. Other sections here are skills developed. It's very clear. It takes it everything I dumped into it came up with 4 skills that I developed over the last quarter. So now I know exactly how I'm more valuable. It talked about leadership contributions, that email that Orlando said, oh, you get this email and you pop it in here. Here is one sentence. It says, influence senior leadership to secure 40 hours of dedicated curriculum development time. So now you have a specific example of how you've influenced someone and how that's turned into something. I just thought it was really such a great way to take a lot of strategic thinking that we normally skip. Like, I hear so many people skip this because it's just not something that's due for their work or due to their leader. And so what do? We leave us to the very end, but this works for us while we're doing our work at the office, which I think is really cool.
Yep, love that. Love that explanation. That's awesome. I'm gonna need you as a spokesperson on a commercial.
Well,
Do an ad.
I'm not, I can be skeptical. You know that, Orlando. Like, I can be skeptical, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, I would definitely do this. And you and I can go on forever, but I do want to kind of wrap up with a couple of thoughts. One of them before we go is
Mhm.
that Orlando, thank you very much. You have been so kind. He has actually, we've got a link in the description that provides you not a 7-day trial like normal, but he actually gave us a double. So you have 14-day trial just to check it out, see what's in there, be like wowed like I was. And then also, if I'm not mistaken, Orlando, I believe you also said that you'd be giving people who go through that link half off for 3 months. Is that right?
Yeah, so 30% off for 90 days
Okay,
with
that's what it was.
yeah, with your promo code.
Yes, 30% off. Okay, so when Orlando and I talked, I actually asked for 90 days for y'all because 90 days is a good amount of time to put in enough information and to get you to your next evaluation. And the goal is that you would utilize this for the quarter. And then at the end of the quarter, you go through that quarter overview, print that out, do a quick little prep because again, it's literally one page and it's a very clear, clean, short one page. But now you can go into your evaluation or go into a promotion conversation or go talk to HR. And me personally, I would love to hear of some of the wins that come from this, whether it's for interviews or for evaluations.
Do you want to figure out What are the top values? What do they need me to speak about? And how can I position myself for an internal promotion? What do I need to bring to the table that's going to make me the top candidate for just a raise or something like that, or even improve your resume or your LinkedIn profile? And so these are things that you will consistently need because it's right, it's a career journey, it's a career growth. It doesn't end after one event. And for $19, I mean,
Mhm.
really? Now
It's a good.
the value is incredible.
Yes. And you know what? You just brought up this really great idea of like a wonderful way to test this out, especially when you first jump on, is to maybe you spend an hour or two just like talking through. One of the things that I do, just secret little tip number 79, is I talk into ChatGPT and it transcribes it so quickly. And then I pull it and use it wherever I need to. And so if that's what you do and you throw it into or toss it into Career Capital, even though you may not have something right now, you can click that quarterly overview button before the end of the quarter. You can click that tomorrow and see what your wins are and see them in this beautiful language. So um, it's just helpful to go through and see what it can do in those 14 days and then to use that for the quarter to kind of move your career forward, which is really cool.
Love it. I couldn't said it any better, Patricia.
Yeah. Yeah, this was fun. I'm so glad I had you on. And as you know, I don't have a ton of guests, but I saw this and I was like, whoa, this is like, when you know somebody and then they come up with something and you're like, "Oh, I didn't know you like that." Like, I didn't know, like, you had this in you, which anyways, okay, so Orlando, whether or not someone goes with Career Capital, the goal today is that, if you're listening, you are realizing, "Oh my gosh, I need to set aside the time, even if it is just 10 or 15 minutes a week to jot down my wins so that I can leverage them fully for my best possible career wins in the future, right? And to get paid what you're worth." And so, Orlando, before we go, if you had
Mhm.
1 minute to give a couple more insights to folks around this topic, what else would you share?
Look, if you were to just you can go to ChatGPT and search, give me articles around documentation of work, the importance of documenting your work. You're going to find articles dating back several years from Wall Street Journal, Forbes, LinkedIn, different platforms, credible platforms that speak to this. So this notion of documenting your work is not new. No one has came up with a tool yet. Every article that you see, they all may say use Notion, Google Docs, use a spreadsheet, which is great. But again, the extraction of the value, there's no tool out there that does that. And so Career Capital does that, which you can find at career-capital.com.
Yes. And if you go to career-capital.com slash, I believe it's the uncommon 14, the link will be in the
Correct.
description. That's when you can make sure and get career capital, but also save yourself some money. Sweet. All right. Well, Orlando, thank you so much for being here with us today. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming and shining a light on documenting your career wins and also shining a light on career capital. Any final words?
Yeah, I would say take immediate massive action. And one thing I would tell folks, it is not up to your managers to showcase your worth. It's up to you.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Orlando. And everyone listening, know that we are cheering you on. We're praying for you. And we'll see you on the next one. Hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate you spending time with me today. If you found this episode helpful, please tap the 5-star review on the show's homepage in your podcast app. It would absolutely make my day, and it helps others discover the Uncommon Career Podcast. Now, to download your free career resources and learn how I help seasoned professionals land amazing offers in as little as 90 days, click on the link in the description or go to theuncommoncareer.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.